podcasts.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a great break and a wonderful networking session. Be sure to jump into those networking rooms when you get a chance to take a break, and be sure to visit those sponsor booths. Now, we definitely want that booth traffic. We want you to come by and chat with us, and we'd definitely love to give you a parting gift to a lucky winner. So come by and check us out. We would love that. Our next presenter is Jackie Angus. She's the Director of Support for Mage Mojo. I made sure that none of the support tickets were like laying on a desk somewhere. She assures me that she's got her bases covered back, so we don't have to worry about the Director of Support being on with us right now. Jackie is the Director of Support for Mage Mojo, and she works daily to ensure Magento merchants and development agencies have 24/7 top-notch support. She holds the Adobe Certified Expert Magento Commerce Business Practitioner certification and is an LPIC 1 Linux server professional and a very proud mom of 3. So please welcome to the stage, Jackie. Jackie, thank you so much for being with us.
Shannon. So what I would like to talk about today is pre-flight checks for Magento 2 Go Live. We see a lot of Go Lives at Mage Mojo, and these are the most common things to go wrong or need adjustment. M2 gotchas. We know there are a lot of those out there. For security, Magento 2 should be served from the pub directory. This prevents site visitors from accessing root directory assets from a browser, like the app folder. If you host at Mage Mojo, this is automatically done for you via Nginx for Magento 2.1 and above. The pub directory should not be in the path for your static assets as shown here. Magento has 3 modes of operation separate from maintenance mode. Fresh installs of Magento 2 are in default mode, which is not optimized for production. Static files are dynamically generated in both default and developer mode. Developer mode has additional logging, enables automatic code compilation, and enhances debugging, but it is the slowest mode possible in Magento 2, and you may not even notice that fact until your store starts receiving traffic. Production mode is the mode for the best performance and the one that you need to be on Go Live Day. There are 2 indexer modes in Magento 2. Real-time sets the indexers to update on save. Schedule sets them to index with the Magento cron. If your indexers are set to real-time, a full reindex will be done every time changes are made to your product catalog. This can turn into a recipe for disaster very quickly. You will want your indexer set to schedule for Go Live to avoid MySQL deadlocks and poor performance. In Magento 2.3.5, content security policy has been introduced with a new module. The point of this module is to improve security by protecting Magento from cross-site scripting, card skimmers, session hijacking, clickjacking, and more. There are 2 modes: report only, which only reports violations in the console, and restrict mode, which actually restricts those violations that it finds. Even in report mode, it can create HTTP headers that may be over the maximum allowed size in Nginx or CloudFront. You should always fix or disable the checks for the violations in report mode before turning on CSP restrict mode, as well as when a secondary store or website is added. Installing a CAPTCHA on your store will protect your store from bots who spam account registration, newsletters, contact us forms, and guest checkouts. In many cases, you can install invisible CAPTCHA that can determine if a user is a robot without adding any extra layer of annoyance. Magento version 2.3.6 release notes report that the new ability to enable CAPTCHA on the payment-related REST and GraphQL endpoints. If enabled, this will prevent carding attacks on the Magento API. If you are not yet ready for an upgrade, you can still block it with rate limiting or place your store behind Cloudflare's advanced firewall, especially if you're being hit with hundreds of IPs during this type of attack. JavaScript merge and bundling. The purpose of JavaScript merge is to simply merge all the JavaScript into one file, while JavaScript bundling reduces the number of server requests by merging all JavaScript files into bundles. The disadvantages here: JavaScript merge can create one large JavaScript file that could affect performance. And while Magento bundling reduces the number of server requests, it loads all the bundles for each page request, regardless if the page depends on all the files within the bundle or not. The bundles load in the browser synchronously, so this could affect performance. There are some differing opinions in the Magento community on whether both merge and bundling should be enabled at the same time. Magento 2.4 docs say yes. Community consensus is to defer using either one and use Baylor or MagePack instead. As a side note, if you are in an environment like Magento that has auto-scaling, be sure that you have HTML minification turned off as it is not compatible. On the next few slides, we will talk about the type of hosting that Magento needs, including any specialized considerations. The CPU and memory requirements for Magento 2 are going to vary wildly per store, depending on your code and configuration. With the implementation of consumers in Magento 2.3 and above, more resources are needed. Traffic, product count, and optimization should also be taken into consideration. At MageMojo, our plans distribute CPU and memory per service, as you can see in the example for MySQL here. PHP FPM limits are not limited on Stratus Mass since autoscaling replicates PHP code in containers horizontally across additional nodes in the Mass infrastructure. PHP memory limits should also be set to at least minimum requirements. Speaking of consumers, consumer jobs use between 180 and 250 megabits of memory per process, even when they are not processing any data. If you have 8 or 9 of these, you could be using 2 gigs of memory just to have them available. They can be disabled or enabled via your env file. MageMojo has an in-house written cron module that addresses resource issues with consumers. We will go over how consumers work a little later when we talk about RabbitMQ. The right query cache setting can vary per store, and often you won't know this is an issue until your store starts receiving traffic. A query cache size that is too large can actually do more harm than good due to cache overhead and locking. Queries that are cacheable will create a lock on MySQL, so the larger the cache, the more system time it takes to retrieve and store queries. When this happens, you will see queries with the status of waiting for query cache lock. This is a sign that you need to reduce the query cache further. For some stores, we have seen where it is best that query cache be disabled entirely. By default for Magento, we like to start stores off with a query cache size of 128 megabits. However, it can be adjusted regardless of which plan you are on. MySQL 8 does not have query cache. The MySQL Server team decided instead to make optimizations which provided improvements to all workloads. A good configured web access firewall is a huge plus to have for Magento. You will need the ability to block certain user agents, IP addresses, paths in Magento, along with the ability to rate limit if needed. SQL injection is a common attack that we see, along with file injection and carding attacks. Before going live, you may want to block some countries that you do not ship to. DNS changes. DNS changes can take up to 24 hours to propagate. Usually it is much faster than that. However, we have seen it take up to and beyond the full 24 hours for name servers to propagate. If the records can be copied ahead of time to the new host with the root domain pointed back to the current host, this allows the name servers to be changed pre-go live, which offers a much smoother transition. At MageMojo, we have an environment that allows you to run a live site on one instance and develop a new site on another. Development instances are included in your plan. This is a common scenario for merchants who are transitioning from Magento 1 to Magento 2. Once you're ready to go live, we can swap the production instance with the dev instance for very minimal downtime. There are more than a few services and third-party options to consider before going live. Do I need RabbitMQ? The answer to that is yes and no. In Magento versions 2.3 and above, most consumers use the Magento database to retrieve messages or tasks. RabbitMQ is required only for the bulk API of Magento, like bulk product updates. As an example, let's say you want to export all of your products. You run the export from the Magento admin. Entries are inserted into the queue message table in the database. The consumer export processor, which is run by cron, will grab these messages from the queue message in the database and process the export. In this example, the message broker is MySQL. Bulk API updates are handled following the same process with the async operations all consumer, which retrieves messages from RabbitMQ as a message broker instead of MySQL. This is because bulk API combines multiple calls into an array and executes them as a single request. You can check the queue under Magento admin, system, bulk action log to see those. Magento strongly recommends that Varnish is used in production. Varnish improves page load time and concurrency by reducing the number of requests that must be filled by Magento. You should fully test your store with Varnish enabled before go live. In addition, if you set HTTP cache hosts, cleaning Magento caches will flush Varnish as well. By default, Magento stores sessions in files. You will want to make sure you change this to Redis to improve performance. Here are some examples of what those changes would look like. The specific settings would vary according to your host. At MageMojo, we have 3 separate Redis instances. When you clear Redis cache, you will not lose your sessions since it is contained within its own instance of Redis. Image sizes can be reduced with lossless compression. This can reduce file sizes by up to 50% without losing quality. This is especially important for any large front page banners or slides. Here's an example of a common image optimization process. There are also modules that will take care of this for you in the marketplace. Until Magento 2.4 started requiring Elasticsearch, the search default was MySQL. According to Magento, it is a recommended practice to replace the default MySQL search engine with Elasticsearch on previous versions as well, because Elasticsearch is a better performing search engine. The MySQL search engine stores data in RAM, which can grow very large and be subject to thousands or millions of requests per second. If you host with MageMojo, send us a ticket and we can advise on how best to go about setting it up for your version of Magento. Elasticsearch containers can be launched with no additional cost. Don't forget, you will need a valid SSL certificate. Your host should be able to provide you with a CSR to make that process an easy task for you. It's best to have this installed in advance if possible, as it will be one less thing to worry about during Go Live. And that is all I have for you today.
You snuck up on me. I wasn't ready to unmute and put myself back on camera. So great presentation, incredibly interesting stuff. Let's see what our audience has been saying. It looks like we do have a couple of questions from the audience. This first one is from Raj. How do you back up MySQL without affecting the performance of the server?
We have something called high availability that takes snapshots, and all the details for that are listed out in our KB.
Okay, and then the follow-up from Raj is database connection pooling. Can we leverage this method in Magento?
I'm not sure. I would have to research for that for him.
Yeah, I'm personally not aware of using connection pooling in Magento. Proxy SQL when we were running on Aurora. Let's see. There's a question here from Eric. Can you use Let's Encrypt?
Yes, you absolutely can use Let's Encrypt, but that's only in the case that you're using MageMojo's name servers. Otherwise, we can't issue it.
Got it. All right, guys. Last call for Q&A. Anything more for Jackie? She's done a great job for us. Thank you for that presentation. I'm going to ramble for another 20, 30 seconds to see if anybody else wants to jump on. Is there anything else that you've thought of since your presentation literally seconds ago that you would like to share with the audience before we switch over?
Nope. Thanks, guys.
No worries. We've got some great comments in the chat saying, thank you, excellent job. Oh, Apache or Nginx?
Nginx.
Nginx. All right. Fantastic. Well, another wonderful presentation is drifting behind us. Please be sure to visit your sponsor booths. And when you go to the next presentation, be sure to refresh your screen so that the presentation itself will match the name of the presenter at the bottom. And we will see you on the next one. Thanks, Jackie.